Let me say a pleasant good morning to you, Captain Gary Griffith, former National Security Minister, NTA leader. Yes, Gary Griffith.
Good morning.
A pleasant good morning to you.
My name is Gary. Only could call me Gary. After all that long introduction, half of the interview time gone already.
All right, Gary, here it is. Lennox in studio. Your boy Pitbull in studio. Mikey listening. And Lennox Smith. Wait till we want to talk to Gary about again. Go ahead.
The Brent Thomas debacle, if you want to call that, unfolding. I just want to read just two short paragraphs in today's Guardian, and that should put things in perspective. It says as follows, and I'm quoting, in April 2023, High Court Justice Devendra Rampersad permanently stayed all criminal charges against the 61-year-old owner of Specialist Shooters Training Center. Rampersad ruled that in the Barbados arrest was unlawful. The state, however, appealed the decision, claiming the judge erred in law. And of course, the other paragraph is continuing on Sunday after the news out of Barbados broke. Former Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith claimed that the truth of the government's involvement in the controversial 2022 arrest of Thomas in Barbados would soon be revealed. I think that put things in perspective, and that is the place we want to go. So you can start anywhere that you wish in terms of your response, having regard to today's article.
Yes, certainly. It will be straightforward. Good morning to you and to your many listeners. So the reason why I can actually make a statement on this matter is not because I'm somebody that is political, but the fact is that I'm the only person in the Caribbean who has been a Minister of National Security and a Commissioner of Police. So I am fully aware of the role and function and the authority and the restrictions of that of a Commissioner of Police and a Minister of National Security throughout the Caribbean. And in this situation, if at any time police officers are required to travel outside of the territorial waters of Trinidad and Tobago, you must get the approval from the Minister of National Security or a very senior government minister in the National Security Council. That is fact. If it is that the police, when I was playing hockey for Defence Force, if we have a hockey game to play in Barbados, we cannot leave to take part in a hockey match unless the minister signs approval. And that's for a sporting event. So it is impossible for the police to have left the territorial waters of Trinidad and Tobago to go to Barbados to do this unless a senior government minister approved it. The police officers can't go past Shakari unless a government minister approves it, because the Commissioner of Police only has authorization for operational responsibility and direction within the territorial waters of Trinidad and Tobago. And the sad thing about it is our media, they seem reluctant, if not afraid, to challenge the Minister of National Security on this by just telling them, Minister, it is impossible for the police to have left the shores without the approval of a government official. What do you have to say? Or Ola Christopher, can you explain who gave approval for these three police officers to leave Trinidad and Tobago? And it cannot be McDonald Jacob giving them that authority. If he did, well, then he has serious questions to answer, because he does not have that authority. So that's basically what it is. The fact is that there's a government minister that is involved, and the reason this massive cover-up is taking place is when you mark bus, this minister can very well become a subject for a person of interest in aiding and abetting in an abduction. And any minister with that hanging over his head should immediately be removed from cabinet. And that is the major concern about this whole thing. It gets even more pathetic when it is we have an Attorney General who seems to be the Attorney General of the PNM rather than the Attorney General for the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Barbados have done the correct thing. It is the only thing to do, because this individual was extradited, he was abducted, he was kidnapped, whichever you want to call it, without the proper extradition papers, without the proper documentation. So it meant that he was abducted unlawfully, and Barbados have admitted. For the Attorney General of the PNM, not the government of Trinidad and Tobago, because he is batted as an Attorney General for his political party rather than doing what is right for the state, to have the audacity to state, well, that is Barbados business, we have our case against Brent Thomas. I really don't know. I'm trying to verify. What is the case against Brent Thomas here? I can't recall Brent Thomas actually being charged when he came back to Trinidad and Tobago. And even if that was true, the fact is what they did by the police officers traveling to Barbados without the proper documentation to have him extradited meant that they were wrong, which is why Barbados has succumbed to this decision, and they have agreed that, listen, we were wrong, and this is not any fault per se to any great extent of Barbados, Barbados did this on good faith, thinking that Trinidad and Tobago is not a communist country, that police officers could be directed by politicians to kidnap a law-abiding citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. So Barbados did this under the perception that the government of Trinidad and Tobago had all their I's dotted and their T's crossed, so they knew exactly what was happening. Never to believe that Trinidad and Tobago had become such a communist country that they will have politicians direct police officers to leave the territorial waters of Trinidad and Tobago to kidnap a Trinidad and Tobago citizen.
Wow.
So wait. I mean, this is unbelievable. Are you saying, Gary Griffith, that the government of Trinidad and Tobago, having regard to all what you have said there, and I have no reason to doubt, nobody has, that it was a literal hoodwinking of the Barbadian authority, deceiving them into believing that there was something significant, and that all the I's were dotted and the T's crossed, and that therefore they responded, and now they found themselves now in jeopardy, having regard, of course, to the legal action taken by Brent Thomas through his legal representation over there in Barbados. Is that what you're saying?
That is exactly what I was stating. In fact, Barbados has nothing against Brent Thomas. They probably didn't even know who Brent Thomas was. They have no information, no documentation, nothing pertaining to like an extradition papers or anything. So when the police turns up, listen, this is the situation. It may not just be the police. This could involve ministers, the minister who also, there may be another minister I'm hearing who may also be involved, who gave approval and made the request to get the CARICOM plane. So there may be two ministers in that National Security Council, one giving authorization for the police to leave the territorial waters of Trinidad and Tobago to kidnap someone, and another who may have been involved in that type of relationship with CARICOM to call CARICOM to get the use of the aircraft to have the person kidnapped. So there may be two ministers who may need to be fired for this, or two ministers who may become subject of an investigation towards aiding and abetting in a kidnapping. And as I said, Barbados will have nothing to do for this. Now remember, the Trinidad government, after 4 years with the lies of the Stanley John report and the lies of the audit, massive well-oiled criminal industry. So Stanley Jokey John and the others, a massive well-oiled criminal industry, down to this Jokey Keith Rowley, who continued to say that. After 4 years, not one person convicted, not one person charged, not one person arrested. Desperation started setting in because they realized, Keith Rowley realized he got set up by someone in his cabinet who lied to him to give him the impression there was a massive well-oiled criminal industry. They took a fake report. So that's always the problem, When politicians hire people, pay them big money, the persons may very well write something that you will want. And with that, the government was very desperate to hold somebody. They made the mistake to hold somebody outside of Trinidad and Tobago's waters. And then, so he's not just going to win this case, he's going to win to the fact that it's going to hurt our tax, our dollars in our back pocket. And Barbados has nothing, Barbados has no political agenda to benefit by arresting Brent Thomas. Barbados has no value in it. It was the PNM government, because of their political bitterness, vindictiveness, arrogance, they were forced to say, look, we have to get somebody arrested. This is embarrassing. For 4 years, we've been claiming that firearm sales involves massive corruption. So we have to arrest somebody. So after 25,000 applicants, 6,000 people getting firearms, 52 firearm dealers, and 7,000 police officers, they couldn't arrest one person because it was a lie. So because of their desperation to arrest someone, they rushed it. And then, so Barbados now listening to the police or the ministers saying, listen, this is a man of serious concern. And there's the problems with firearms in this country. Barbados automatically said, okay, you are our CARICOM brothers. We have to assist you. We can't allow because we know the concerns with firearms. forgetting, however, it's illegal firearms that have been instrumental to 100% of murders by firearms, not legal firearms sold by Brent Thomas. But the Barbados government didn't have to take in all that. They took the bait, they did what they had to do, and then it backfired. And that is why now they've thrown their hands in the air and said, look, we are totally culpable. We knew we were wrong. Trinidad and Tobago's government, because of their arrogance, will drag this along to cause Brent Thomas now to be able to have more money from our taxpayers because of the arrogance of the Attorney General of the PNM, because we do not have an Attorney General that looks after the interests of Trinidad and Tobago.
So Gary, you're now saying that there is no common sense rationale behind this, and the statement recently made by the Attorney General, there is no legal parameters on which they can depend to justify that. And what we are left with, of course, is whether or not the public's interest is now in jeopardy, and the political, what I consider to be viability of the PNM itself as a government seem to be waning as well. And one wonders now whether they will drag it along until after an election, or until they call an election. And then, of course, it doesn't matter what happens afterwards, but the public's interest would have not been served. That's the conclusion anybody with common sense will conclude. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, definitely. What they're doing is not just doubling down, they're stalling for time. It's the same thing they've done. I have been winning all the court cases and all the lies that they've been stating. And every time I win the case, they try to appeal so that it will drag on. And I was in court all day with Keith Rowley on the same matter with the audit. Again, remember with the audit, the audit, we actually had a document with the persons in this audit report stating that we issued 174,000 firearms. You hear madness? 174,000. The same Fitzgerald Hines confirmed that I issued 6,000 in 3 years, half of the law enforcement officials, which is 0.3% of the population. So if I was issuing 2,000 firearms a year, it would have taken 87 years before we sold those 174,000 firearms. But that's the type of, when it is you hire incompetent persons and you pay them big money, they will write what you want them to put. And that is the way they operate. So after I won the case, they appealed. That is now going on in court as well with the appeal. And that's what they do. They drag on. So in this situation, it's the same thing. Listening to Reginald Amor state that the Attorney General of Barbados has made a decision in what he sees fit as the best interest of Barbados. Reginald Amor is making a decision as to what he sees fit that is in the best interest of the People's National Movement. Because he's not making the decision by looking at... you can't be half pregnant in this situation. Barbados can't be culpable and Trinidad is not. So if Barbados has already thrown their hands in the air, thrown in the white flag because they understood we made a big mistake here. We did not have the proper authorization and to extradite Brent Thomas from Barbados. On what grounds Trinidad and Tobago could defend this? You can't. You're wrong. Regardless of the fact that even because they keep saying that they have a case against Brent Thomas, I can't recall him being charged. And as I said, even if there is, unless you have the proper to extradite that person from Barbados back to Trinidad, you're wrong. And Brent Thomas has won his case. Barbados have now thrown in the towel and said, look, we admit that we were wrong. So how could Barbados be wrong and Trinidad and Tobago could be right on the same case? It is totally impossible. What this is a drag-on in the hope that this matter will come to an end and the persons who were culpable for it will be discovered after the election.
So it's an after-election ploy?
Yeah, it's a drag-on. Because he cannot, Reginald Amor cannot justify that Barbados has admitted that they were wrong and Trinidad and Tobago is not wrong. The reason Barbados has admitted that they were wrong and culpable is because Trinidad and Tobago did not do what was required to provide the proper documentation to have someone extradited from Barbados. So for Barbados to admit that, it's the same, it's as though you're talking about the law. The law is the law. Trinidad and Tobago's law cannot override Barbados' law. This is in Barbados territorial waters. So if Barbados have stated that what was done was incorrect, the police officers from Trinidad and Tobago who acted in Barbados were also wrong. So on what grounds it is you're going to fight this? And again, it shows the doubling down, the arrogance, and the dictatorship of this government.
On the grounds of it's not their money coming out of their pocket and it's the people money coming out of our pocket, so they don't give a damn. So that is the grounds.
Let me just say just about two more things that are it may be obliquely related. One, there was a press conference between, of course, now we know now the Foreign Affairs Minister and that of the National Security Minister. But the whole ethos of the press conference was to, of course, talk about your character and your moral and ethical response to the Prime Minister and some of the statements that you would have made against him. And of course, Brong is saying that was inappropriate on the one hand. And then, of course, Hines said that he tried his best and succeeded. And it was the best thing they did for the police service. And that is to get rid of you because, of course, you became, of course, a huge mistake on the part, experiment, I think that failed. That was the nature, if I'm not paraphrasing what the minister has said. Could you just speak to those two things, because I thought it's very, very, very disingenuous and fraught with political aggrandizement and opportunism that has no place in reality in Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, it is good. I really welcome the fact that these two jokers had nothing better to do than to spend 93 minutes to battle Gary Griffith. And why? Because our Prime Minister is quite in Ireland. And as soon as he heard that Gary Griffith is going up as a candidate for St. Joseph, he realized, oh God, it's right, 22 seats we have, one down, one more to go, and we're out of government. That's what this was all about. All of this information they claimed they had it over 3 years now. But as soon as they hear Gary Griffith is going up for St. Joseph, in a two-horse race, PNM could get Barack Obama. They're not going to beat Gary Griffith in St. Joseph. So Rowley now is panicking because he loves Terence Dial Singh. He doesn't want Terence Dial Singh to lose, so he has to find another person out to throw out in one of his other 21 seats so that Dial Singh will stay in the lower house. I put a lot of headaches on the lad, and instead of him being in Ireland watching dolphins and drinking some Guinness, he is just panicking. And then we got the information that he called 91.9 asking them to contact Gary Griffith and attack him with full force. The man is mortified. So with all of this, and then after recently there was an incident when they called him again on TV6, where I have confirmation that he contacted me to get me to expedite a firearm dealership for somebody he knows closely in Tobago, and he had to reply. So I have this man very busy in Ireland. So as it pertains to these two jokers with their comments, Fitzgerald Hines actually is trying to judge the performance of an individual. You're judging me as a Minister of National Security when under the People's Partnership government, when Kamala Prasad Desai as Prime Minister, the head of the National Security Council at the time, it was the highest reduction in serious crime in 31 years. Public trust and confidence was almost at an all-time high. Even myself as Commissioner of Police, it moved from 14 to 59%. 89% of the country was comfortable with my performance or had no issue. I was getting excellent and very good ratings in 72 out of 73 of the 75 ratings annually by the Police Service Commission. The country felt safer. It was the highest reduction in violent crime in 17 years with me as a commissioner. And he is trying to judge me, a man who has the record of the two highest crime rates in the history of Trinidad and Tobago in consecutive years. A man who people see as a total failure. A man who didn't even know that his role and function is to provide safety and security for the country. A man who has not put not one policy he has put as a Minister of National Security. As Minister of National Security, I was able to implement the National Operations Center, the Community Comfort Patrol, the National Security Special Operation Group, the National Security Training Academy, the Emergency Response Patrol, and many more. So when he decided to speak, people just laughed at him. As it pertains to the situation with SORT, they were full of lies. One thing they're good at is say the same lie over and over. Why didn't they show documentation of these things? Because for Amy Brown to say that the U.S. government decided to blacklist SORT because of an incident involving two persons who were killed. Not one person in SORT has yet been arrested. You are telling me the U.S. will overstep their bounds of natural justice whilst a matter is still being investigated to blacklist SORT? And if that is the case, the Special Naval Unit, which is under the Coast Guard, that is funded by the U.S., and the U.S. provide weapons for them. And these same weapons, we have the information that they were used to kidnap and kill someone. How come SNU is still being funded by the U.S.? And so it was never funded by the U.S. in the first place. That is a lie. So all of the different comments made, look at the situation with the prisoner being killed. The U.S. going to blacklist them. 100 other persons have been killed by the police in the last 3 years after I left.
What has to
you're
take
gonna
note
blame,
of that? And they have
you're going to blame
remained
McDonald
definitely
Jacob.
silent on these matters.
Yeah, you're going to blame McDonald Jacob and Ola Christopher for those crimes. So it shows the stupidity, the ignorance, and the desperation by these two jokers. And that is where it is that the country needs to. And you see those floating voters, that 150,000. All they are doing is by them doubling down to attack Gary Griffith from now until the election. All it is doing is causing the majority of that 150 to shift towards an alliance of parties that is going to annihilate them. That is similar to what took place in 2010.
Nice. Thanks so much, Captain Gary Griffith, for gracing us here. Keep up the hard work.